It's Saturday evening, Saturday the 11th of June here in Caparica, Portugal, and it's time for the weekly sum up that I do on my channel. I mix it a little bit with some vlog pictures, but I finished 2 books and I'm going to tell you everything right after this. Obviously, I have a little bit different setting because we are still in Portugal. We're still in just 20 kilometers outside the Portuguese capital of Lisbon. And I finished 2 books last week. Actually, we started our trip on Monday, Swedish National Day, and we were very scared that there would be long queues at the airport Arlanda. Today, I read on the internet that Arlanda almost broke into pieces because the police had to stop all traffic to Terminal 5. The trains, Arlanda Express, that have Terminal 5 as their final stop did not travel there because there were so many people, hundreds and thousands of people were hanging around on Terminal 5 desperately waiting for their flights and waiting for the security control, and many people have missed their flights. I read about tears, about angry people and people in despair missing their flights, meaning that they won't get anything back, because the Swedavia, the airport, the company that is running the airport Arlanda, is not responsible because you have to come in time. No matter if it takes 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 hours. When we flew on to when we took our flight to Lisbon on Monday, we were there like 4 hours and 20 minutes before our flight, and it took like 10 or 15 minutes just to get through the security control, so that can happen too. But we were very lucky, and the situation as it is now in Arlanda is very, very strange and will go on until September, October. Well, then we came to Portugal, and on the plane already I started reading Dulce Maria Cardoso's great Portuguese novel, The Return. Is a story about the return of a family, actually of a boy, 15-year-old boy, and his mother and sister from Angola to Portugal in the 1970s, in the middle of the 1970s, when the former colony of Angola became independent, and when thousands of Portuguese who had lived there for many decades and many years were coming back to Portugal. Actually, many of them were not coming back because they had never been to Portugal, but they came back. They were called the returnees, os retornados, and they came back to the motherland. And in that novel, Dulce Maria Cardoso is describing this story of that 15, 16-year-old boy coming to Estoril in Portugal, which is also outside Lisbon, but north of Lisbon, west of Lisbon, a very famous sea resort. And they live in a 5-star hotel with hundreds of other returnees. And that's his coming of age. That's what happens there. And you have the backstory of all the racism of the people against each other in Angola, black and white people there, standing opposite to each other, and also the problems of integrating in Portuguese society, because Portuguese society looked down on the returnees, and very difficult time, and very beautiful book by Dulce Maria Cardoso, who's describing this also in several forms of narratives, because there are several perspectives that we have in the novel, mostly that one of Rui, the 15-year-old, the 16-year-old boy. That was the first book, and then I started, as a second read, I started Laird Hunt's novel Zorrie, which I have finished today already. It's a very short one, about 175 pages only. And this is an amazing story that is going to make you cry. It's going to make you smile, but it's also going to make you cry. I mean, Zorrie is a story of a woman from the American Midwest, from the state of Indiana. So Laird Hunt's novel Zorrie is a novel about a woman called Zorrie Underwood. She is, and it's about her life. It's about the life of a woman who is born in the 1920s, probably, and she's living through a very difficult and poor life as a teenager. Her parents die of diphtheria. She's living with her aunt. Her aunt dies as well because she's an alcoholic. She dies due to alcoholism, and Zorrie is not capable of living in that house anymore, so she starts sleeping on the street, sleeping rough, as they say in England, and until she gets a job. She gets a job in a radium factory where many girls work, young women worked, women who didn't know that the material radium that they were dealing with, radium powder, was very radioactive and very dangerous to their health, and many of them died of cancer later on. And Zorrie has a couple of friends there. But then she leaves, she goes back to Indiana, to her home state, where she stays almost all her life. She never leaves Indiana again, only twice. Once when she is visiting her friends again, and once when she goes on a trip much later on to Holland. She meets a boy, a young man called Harold. She marries him, and her name is Zorrie Underwood. That's the first time that she has a last name in that novel. And Zorrie is working hard, living a simple, easy life in the countries, on the countryside, a rural life, not a city life. She's working hard on a farm, and her husband goes into the Second World War. In 1943 or 1944, he goes to Europe, and he doesn't come back. He dies, his plane is shot down, and young Zorrie is a widow, and her life goes on. She makes new friends, she has neighbors. She stays in that vicinity because the parents of Harold, of her husband, take care of her. She has a very good relationship to her neighbors, to Noah, a man whose wife is in a mental facility, and he's not allowed to see her anymore. We have the parents of Harold, Virgil, and Ruby, his wife. And there's a lot of relationships that Zorrie has, friendships, relationships with neighbors, with reverends, with the police, with the sheriff, and much more. And this is so beautifully described, Zorrie, that it makes you cry a lot of times. There's a lot of grief in that novel. When Zorrie becomes a widow, she's grieving for Harold, for her husband. Noah is grieving his wife, Opal, who is in that mental hospital for years. And people, the years go on, and people die. The dog that she cared about for many years dies. There's a lot of grief. There is a lot of simple life, but much beauty in that life, and very poeticism in that novel. So I really, really liked Zorrie by Laird Hunt. And I understand why the National Book Awards jury of 2021 decided to put this book on the shortlist. It was really a great Americana novel. I would call it an Americana novel because it's an American life. And I also wondered, when I read that novel that was written by a man, Laird Hunt, I also thought that this is one of the most fascinating portraits of a woman that I have read in the last couple of years. And funnily enough, it was written by a man, by Laird Hunt. That is just a remark that I would like to make. So both books that I read are very fascinating. Both Dulce Maria Cardoso's The Return and also Laird Hunt's Zorrie. I would like to read one more Portuguese book. I am trying to look if I get something for my Kindle. But if this is not possible, I will continue this reading time here in Portugal with reading Elena Knows from Argentina. So that is the one that I started, but I will look for some Portuguese to read maybe for the last couple of days we spent here in Portugal. That was my reading for this first week here in Portugal. Tell me what you have read this week, and tell me if you have read Dulce Maria Cardoso, or if you read Laird Hunt, and what you think about these two novels, or one of these novels. And I hope to see you very soon and to make some more footage here also from Portugal. So, obrigado, bom tardes, and as we say here in Portugal, ciao!